Welcome to the EngagementFit Drive podcast. We're so happy to have you join us. And together with Tracy, Andrew, and Claire, let's make bringing your drives to life practical and fun. In our Drives and Action episodes, we'll share stories of drives at play in everyday scenarios so you can relate and gain deeper understanding of your drives. In our Driving Impact episodes, we'll sit down with incredible guests who are using the Drive framework and tools to create meaningful impact, both professionally and personally. Whether you're here to better understand yourself, your team, or simply curious about living a thriving and inspired life, you're in the right place. So let's dive in.
Welcome to the EngagementFit Drive podcast. Claire, Tracy, and I have seen the value of using this framework to practically build self-awareness in people's lives and to better understand others and the value they contribute to the world around them. In our last episode, we covered the 3 drives, which are the relational drives, and explain how we relate to others. These drives are confidant, includer, and networker.
In this episode, we will be unpacking 3 drives that fall into the accomplishing drive domain. These are captain, finisher, and scheduler.
Let's start with defining the captain drive. As a captain, you may have extremely strong opinions, and you are probably very outspoken about them. You will confront challenges directly, and you will have a strong natural presence. You may be seen as being a natural leader. To some, you may come across as intimidating, domineering, or controlling. Even if that is not your intent, you are comfortable with confrontation or high-pressure challenges, and in most cases, you don't intend any confrontation to be taken personally. You are simply confronting an issue that needs to be addressed with urgency. You may often stir up the relational environment to get some much needed urgency going, or to focus people on the issue that you see as important. People probably do not understand that you do not take conflict personally, but it is about the issue at hand. Therefore, you can come across as very direct and challenge someone, but you will also just as quickly get over it and carry on with the conversation or relationship as if nothing happened. You love challenges. The bigger, the better. Captains are natural directors and controllers of ventures and initiatives and thrive in conditions where they can take control, be in charge, drive the energy to the maximum, and take decisive action towards big challenges. What are the drive needs of the captain? Needs to take control or take the lead. Pushback and directness. To confront an issue or challenge head on. So that was the definition of the captain drive and the needs. What I'd like to share with you now is the booster drives with captain. We have captain guardian and captain pioneer. I'll just share my own perspective on these because I am very dominant guardian and very dominant pioneer, with both sit in my top 9. But we do also look at the top 12 dominant drives because we find that they influence a person's personality, behavior, how they show up. My captain sitting at number 12, sometimes the captain comes up definitely. The captain guardian, when we talk about these being boosters, they are both assertive, and our captain is going to be more clinical and outspoken, and they're going to really be standing up for their opinions. They may not even be so invested in their opinion, but they're going to be outspoken about it. If you can convince a captain that it's actually this way, they can switch. You can change their mind about things. Whereas the guardian can be emotional and outspoken, defending their values and principles. You're not going to easily shift that, right? They both show up as being assertive and outspoken. For me, that is very true. And I remember in my youth, My guardian, obviously more dominant than my captain, but oh boy, if I thought that's what the way it was, and you were not going to convince me any other way. And then when we talk about captain pioneer, we've got drives that are strongly self-confident and comfortable with uncertainty. Captains will thrive on taking control of high-pressure situations and remain very clear-headed in these situations, while pioneers thrive on handling the risk of the unknown. For me, give me something new, throw me in the deep end. I'm very happy to work through it and not having that stress overrun my brain where I can't carry on or fall apart. I will work it out because you can stay clear-headed.
I'd be interested to see how you respond to this. My take on captain and guardian is one's clinical captain, the other one's guardian, and which has an emotional response to values or beliefs or principles that are challenged. What I find interesting is when a person like you, where captain and guardian are both strong, could it be a situation where if something's being discussed and it's not the belief, you can have a fairly robust conversation, but you're not going to get triggered emotionally with it? Whereas if it's something where you're starting to feel like a value or principle is coming under threat, that shift into that emotional intensity to back that up becomes more obvious.
Definitely. There's no ways I'm ever backing down. But I also want to add that, and remember I said in my youth, I think mismanaged when I wasn't sure about my values and my principles or what I did want to stand up for. It was just, I don't agree with you, that's what I think, and there was no going past that. We encourage people, if they're strong guardian, to absolutely be very sure of their values. No, what are they going to stand up for? If I am in a situation where I can see somebody is open to me having my opinion or what I believe, absolutely we'll have the discussion. But I'm not there anymore trying to prove anything or just stand up as a strong captain. And I think this is where it comes in. Managing these drives is so important.
I want to ask you, Tracy, from your boosters, captain and guardian, what confrontation looks like depending on which drive you are driving with?
Claire, I think because I'm very strong with a lot of the sensing drives, I will immediately know where to go. And how, for me, it's not confrontation. I'm not going to tell you you're an idiot straight on. For me, it's how I say things, how I do things. I'm also going to be responding to your body language. Even in my coaching, I say to people, you might not like what I'm going to say to you. I know this is maybe hard, but I just feel I need to share this. I feel that this is impacting me or how I'm feeling, but I need to share this with you. And you may need some time to think about it. And I can see you getting upset about it, but I want to be authentic. I want you to know how I feel. So for me, yes, captains can be very direct, but because I'm so strong with caretaker, nurturer, it's going to be done where people don't get offended by what I have to say. It is situational.
I think that's a wonderful example, Trace, of the value of having both of those drives strong, is that sometimes in order to get, and really where the strength of captain is, if there's an elephant in the room that needs to be addressed, it's that ability to put that on the table and to discuss it and not being scared away by the fact that it could go to conflict, because it's an important issue that needs to get resolved. And not only do you have the ability to do that, to put the elephant on the table, but also to sense into how that person is responding to that and to show compassion and empathy where it's needed, but still having the strength to confront the problem head on.
I think, as we know, taking to a lot of people through drives journeys, and that we've come across some captains who don't have any sensing drives. They really battle because they're going to have their say. It doesn't matter how they say it. They're going to just have their opinion and get it across. It's not so much that I'm worried about what people think of me, but I want to have the conversation where we're both growing, where I can have my saying, we can have these deep conversations. We don't have to agree. But this is exactly that. I will, if the elephant is in, I am going to bring it up. I'm not going to ignore it. I'm not going to walk away. Obviously, timing is everything, right? Is the other person at a place where they can actually have this conversation? But yes, it will be addressed.
That's actually wonderful feedback. And if I can ask you then to go to the contrast of that with captain and nurturer, and on how you use caretaker and nurturer to sense when a person is ready for that level of directness.
Yeah, so let's just share the contrasting drives. We've got captain caretaker, captain moderator, captain nurturer. And what the captain caretaker looks like is captain is direct and clinical, and our caretaker is sensitive and emotionally tuned in. I'm just going to go straight now to captain and nurturer because that's strong for me. Captains are direct and challenging, whereas nurturers are nurturing and supportive. My favorite saying is meet people where they're at. And for me is, okay, we've done the nurturing. I've been patient. Now come. Now I'm going to be direct. You need to bring your A game. You need to change the plan. You need to start actioning. It's no use coming to see me every week and you're not doing anything. Where are we going from here? It will be challenging and direct, but they won't feel like they're being confronted, I don't think, from me, because of the way I go about doing it, because I have the sensing, because I'm watching the body language, because I'm determined. This empathy is you can feel how people are feeling. So this week might not be a good week to have this conversation, but next week, yeah, maybe it will be. It's a game that's not just me having an agenda and what's going to go down, is where am I at and what needs to come up. Okay, so I'll give the definition. Captain moderator, we've got captain wants to confront things head on and is energized in high pressure situations, whereas moderators function best in calm, safe, and predictive environments where everyone has an opportunity to feel heard.
And I think that's a very important thing to remember in terms of psychological safety. Because like we mentioned in the description, captains are opinionated and they have a need to share their opinions. What's important for captains to also understand, and it's not just for captains, it's for all of us, but captains have a natural presence. Most captains are not aware of the fact that they have that presence. And when they are communicating an opinion, especially a strong opinion, or a very direct way of communicating something, their nonverbal body language can come across as quite direct and quite challenging. What's important to understand with the contrast of captain moderators, how they tend to approach conflict. A moderator is going to approach conflict from the standpoint of, is there a chance for a win situation? Let me listen to what you have to say and to what the other person has to say. Then let's mediate a way forward so that we can deal with that conflict. And for moderators, their tendency is to always go that way. But in a situation, not that moderators back down from a hostile situation or something that's direct or challenging, but that need for calmness and stability and for a more harmonious environment is quite strong. And if a moderator may feel like there's no way of resolution here without it escalating, they might tend to move away or not feel safe to share their opinions. Whereas a captain would need to get this sorted out and we need to have the discussion. But if the captain's not aware necessarily of how they come across to that person, and especially in the case of a moderator, they may tend to just back down and withdraw as opposed to actually try and deal with the situation. Important dynamic to understand both in interpersonal relationships and in team dynamics. One thing that's quite interesting to understand about a captain is that this is the one drive that is energized by confrontation and conflict. It's important to understand that, especially when it's mismanaged, because remember, in this framework, we're looking at things that energize you sustainably. Captain has a strong need to take control and to take the lead. In situations where this is not being managed well, sometimes you might stir up a relational environment a bit just to get a reaction or pushback or feedback from the people around you. One way of breaking that for a captain would be not to engage. And then that energy has no way of actually playing out. And in a conflict situation where you have a strong guardian drive and a strong captain drive, if you've got an opinion that you are debating, neither are backing down. Guardian needs to understand the importance of walking away from the situation if it's not going to go anywhere, because no one's going to back down straight away. And that's where situations can escalate to a point of not being helpful.
If I can just add on that captain note, it's one of the more challenging drives, especially if it is very high up and dominant for you. I have a client, her number one drive is captain. For her awareness around this is that, does she have to be the one taking control all the time? It's quite challenging to get your head around and go, oh, I can actually take that captain hat off. Maybe I could lean into one of my other drives now. Or is there somebody else better equipped to do this? It doesn't have to be me, because it's not even so much about skill or anything. It's taking control. It's, I'll make the call. I'll get this done. I'll be in charge. So it's one that requires that awareness to manage that. Otherwise, it can be quite exhausting for them and for people around them.
And also, when you understand as a captain that you actually have a natural presence, it allows you the opportunity, when it's mastered well, to actually be compassionate in the situation. And that doesn't mean not dealing with conflict when you need to deal with it, but it does mean that your natural tendency to deal with that situation directly can be toned down a little bit with compassion shown to mitigating the circumstances or whatever. One final thing, just following on from what Tracy was saying as well, is the need to take control, is that we talk about in this framework the importance of strengths-based leadership. When do your drives play to an area that really benefits the people around you? That would be the time to lead the team, to take the control. And when do you need to step back and allow others to lead you, because they'll be playing towards their area of strength?
I would like to find out from Tracy. Guardians are emotional in comparison to captain, that's where we draw the line. And then caretakers are also driving from emotion. How do you balance out your emotions? Because on the one side, you've got boosters, and on the other side, you've got a contrast.
I think for me, because caretaker and nurturer are more dominant, higher up, and it's been a journey, right? It's been so much work on myself in terms of my emotions and the way I show up and handle things and things that come my way. So I've definitely got much better at that. If you knew me when I was a teenager, I cried all the time. I was in tears all the time. Every little thing, and Tracy was crying. As I've got older and worked out all the stuff I needed to work out, I'm in a much better place to feel content. I can't say that I get emotional. I am an emotional person and I feel other people's emotions, but I myself am not over emotional. Yes, I can cry with if my client's crying, I will also shed tears because I feel what they're feeling. But my own levels of emotions, I've got them more balanced. I'm more even, right? I don't have these highs and lows and peaks and waves now. I'm much more stable in my emotions. And that is just time, age, a lot of work on myself, self-reflection, and all of that has played. But that if I am confronted in terms of my values, I will be emotional. I will definitely stand up and I will have my say. I will be direct. I will be challenging. But again, if it is with somebody that is in that mindset to have that conversation, I will. But if that conversation not worth having, I'm not going to even have that discussion.
And I think it leads on to my next one. But I first want to start out by saying that I think you've mastered and you've managed your drives incredibly well, because I get that balance from you. Like, I can honestly feel it. And the captain comes with a natural presence. And me being a dominant guardian as well, there's also a presence, but it's not the same as a captain. And you've mastered the art of being dominant, present, but also the emotional support, if I'm making any sense. And the question that I want to ask around that now is, because you've got captain, guardian, caretaker, and nurturer. What's your patience like? What's your tolerance level like?
I would say this, in all honesty, is with clients, with anyone that I'm working with, I am very patient to a point. And I did have to learn this the hard way in terms of knowing when enough is enough, where somebody needs to actually do that next thing. People that I'm very close to, they actually see the worst of us. So sometimes my captain, with people that I'm close to, if you ask David, he will say, I am very opinionated. I will have my say. So people I'm very close to, I have to work really hard at, just because I can be myself with someone that I'm really close to. Do I have to be so domineering? I think that's still absolutely a work in progress, is to be more tolerant and patient with people that are close to me.
Oh, that's such a great insight. And we hope that with this debrief on Captain, does it resonate with you? Is it something that you see in your life? And are you seeing the benefits of having this particular drive? Now we're going to move on to another accomplishing drive that we would like to discuss. And this is the finisher drive. Here's the definition of a finisher. As a finisher, you strive towards completing tasks, meeting deadlines, and reaching goals. Your energy to achieve and finish is fueled by your need for having challenging daily, weekly, and monthly goals. This drive gives you the energy to outwork most people, provided you have your goals in sight. As a natural finisher, you have a strong need to complete tasks, and you probably do this in a clinical and unemotional way. You probably start your day with a list of tasks to complete, and you may not feel satisfied until you've completed everything you intended for the day. Once you've finished a task, you probably shift it aside and move towards the next goal without need for acknowledgement. The simple achievement of reaching your goal is enough to give you the feeling of success. Others may be inspired or even dragged along by your strong work ethic and drive towards success. You may be frustrated with those who don't seem to have the same work ethic as you. But remember, they probably don't have this drive. Finishers thrive in conditions where there are clear deadlines, continuous challenges, and a need for a strong work ethic to complete tasks and achieve goals. Finishers' drive needs are clear and challenging goals, to set my own pace and be productive, and to finish and complete tasks. What I'd like to discuss now are the booster drives with finisher, and there are 4 of them. The first is finisher competitor. Both are highly driven and competitive. Competitors want to measure and compare their performance against others and cross the finish line first, while finishers just want to cross the finish line and are competitive with themselves. Finisher and coordinator both have a lot of capacity for getting things done. Coordinator's capacity is generated through delegating work to others and coordinating those simultaneous workflows, while finisher's capacity comes from their own endurance to work hard. Together, one has the high endurance of finisher combined with the capacity enabled through others. The next one is finisher and sniper. Both are goal-orientated and have strong finishing energy. Finishers bring endurance, while snipers bring precision, focused concentration, and prioritization. Finally, we have finisher and supporter. Both are reliable and have a lot of endurance for hard work. Finishers are internally motivated and take a clinical approach to their work, whereas supporters are externally motivated by who needs what, by when, and take their work and commitments personally.
I'm going to talk through the contrasting drives with the finisher, and they are true. And I do not resonate with either of them, so it's going to be interesting. So your finisher contemplator, for finisher, productivity means getting things done. For contemplator, productivity is about the depth and quality of thinking. The second one is the initiator. So for finishers have strong finishing energy, whereas initiators have strong starting energy. And I am very blessed to have my co-hosts, one being a finisher and one being an initiator. My question would then be, I'm going to start with you, Andrew. Tell me what finisher means for you from your side, as we've worked together as a team on a couple of different things, and you've had finisher on your side being strong, but initiator being strong for Tracy.
So I think with finisher being a dominant for me and initiator being a drainer for me, my challenge is to get things started. I have no problem with completing tasks. And I think that dynamic is really interesting to understand. I totally resonate with many aspects of that descriptor in terms of that need to get a task done and finished in the day. That can be such a strong driving force. And it definitely is something that needs to be managed, because finisher, supporter, and coordinator, if they are not well managed, what happens is your capacity gets compromised. And if you do that sustainably, just remember that you're energized by these drives. But if you mismanage these drives and you don't prioritize other things that are important in your life, you might be a victim of burnout. This drive plays strongly to it. You're naturally energized. One thing about finisher that's very interesting to understand is that tick when something's done. And the mindset is, great, that's done. What else can I do? Especially because I have finisher and sniper and supporters dominant drives. If I get into the zone with those three, I lose track of time. The detriment to me is that I haven't moved. I've prioritized finishing over everything else. If I'm ticking a lot of boxes that play to those booster components of that energy, I have to decompress at the end of the day, because I'm so wired. I actually need to decompress before I can even consider sleep, because that's the degree to which that energy plays out. It really does need managing. I also don't like to be pulled off task when I'm busy doing something. What frustrates me, like you won't believe, is getting distracted or pulled off task or not being able to complete things, or a day where all I'm doing is adding to my to-do list with other priorities and never getting to actually tick anything off the to-do list.
Andrew, that's such valuable feedback, and I'm so glad you shared that with us, because, as you said, that sniper, supporter, finisher energy, sure, that is detrimental to work-life balance and can really have that huge impact. And one of the things I certainly share with people that have this combination is have two lists, 1 to 10 and another 1 to 10. The list can be completed in the day, but the other one can be done the next day because of that internal pressure that you put on yourself. And absolutely, that coming out of that sniper focus at the end of the day to actually switch to going home to your family. How do you come out of that? Like you said, you give yourself time at the end of the day to decompress. What does that actually look like practically, Andrew?
It's been a lot of learning. It's been a lot of frustration. for example, where that can be extremely detrimental is, especially with the sniper supported component, is I've committed to something and somebody's expecting it from me. I wake up in the middle of the night, oh, I haven't done that. And then that sniper focus gets involved. And my wife and I call it brain on. And then it's a big problem to manage, because you literally have to do something that changes state or reprioritizes you completely to something different, so you can actually do what you need to do and prioritize rest.
Yeah, and I think some of the things are quite helpful is to close your laptop 10 minutes before you want to go home. Say to people, as even now in your car driving home, think about what you're looking forward to at home. What do you want to share with your family? What do you want to tell them about your day? Just to get you out of that focus mindset, to get you in a better space. So as Claire asked the question, and these contrasting finish initiators, so obviously I am very strong initiator. And if you remember from our podcast on the initiator, that initial energy, as we mentioned, is like the airplane taking off. That is the energy that we have to get going. We want to just do this thing. It's this sense of urgency. Come, we've got to go now. Let's go and do it. I'll never forget when we started this podcast, Andrew, many seasons ago, or many episodes ago. In the beginning, I had Andrew. So I'm just going to get started making this podcast, and we'll figure it out along the way. And Andrew and Tracy think we need to have the first 6. We need to know what we're talking about, how they're going to look. And I'm like, no, Andrew, let's get started. We'll figure it out along the way. So even Andrew's come out of his finishing energy and having a little bit of, okay, we'll go with the flow of the initiator. So yes, we want to get started. Initiator may not finish things, but they're going to be the ones that bring that energy as well as bring the people. They're going to drive the people, and energy is contagious. So people will go with them. And I've often asked myself the question, I don't have finisher. I think, like you said, Andrew, finisher sits at 22 for me. But how do I get things done? And that's my coordinator, wanting to be busy and see things through. So that's how I get to the end of things.
And this is the type of dynamic we've just discussed, which is so important to understand in teams. Because while Tracy's really great at getting things done, she needs to collaborate with me in terms of handover to get things finished, and vice versa. The things that need to get started need to collaborate with her and to let her play into the areas where she's strong. There are 3 specific drives that I want to clarify quickly: innovator, contemplator, and specialist. Without any form of executing, you are energized by the process of ideation, learning, and thinking. And so that is why finisher and contemplator are contrasts. Because when it comes to productivity, and this is an important point for people to recognize, finisher's natural capacity, high work ethic, and endurance to work long hours is just as productive as somebody who sat down and blocked off time or created headspace to ideate and has come up with really valuable ideas that will contribute towards productivity, is just as valuable as somebody who is doing ongoing learning and contributing the value of that to the teams, and just as valuable to the person who contributes time to think, muse, and bring insights and deep thinking to a team. One has to be very careful with those drives, especially with finisher. In terms of productivity, is not to project your drive on others. In terms of saying, you say you're tired or you look like you're not doing anything for 4 hours, but the contribution of 4 hours of uninterrupted alone time for a contemplator can be just as valuable as a 20-hour workday for a finisher.
And I'm loving where this is going because, like I started off by saying, I do not have either of those. I'm drawing from my innovator, and Tracy was talking about coordinator. I think that's what makes us such a great team because I've got an initiator, I've got a finisher, and I'm in the middle with innovation and doing all of these coordination and impact layers. Shall I get started on our scheduling?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this exciting journey of self-discovery and fulfillment. We hope you found inspiration, practical takeaways, and maybe a deeper understanding of how drives work in action. If you want to discover your drives, head over to EngagementFit.com and take the drive assessment. If you loved this episode, remember to hit the subscribe button. We'd also love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review or share this episode with someone who's ready to unlock their drives and thrive. Until next time, keep driving towards a life of meaningful impact.